The Love Quotient. The church is to be known as a people of love, beginning within their own number. And I'm afraid at this point a lot of churches strike out because they don't emphasize how their own are to love one another. But Jesus said, "By this shall all men know you are my disciples, by the love that you have one for another." That doesn't mean we can just love this one and not love another one, or if someone is to be particularly, tough to deal with, we just leave them alone. You don't come into a loving relationship with everyone easily. It means that differences have to be resolved. I think for the upper room experience, for the 120 that were finally gathered there, it says that on the day of Pentecost, they were all in one place in one accord. That means that Peter, James, and John had settled some of their differences. They did have some differences. Peter didn't appreciate the fact that James and John had asked for special places to sit by Jesus when he came into his kingdom. And Mary and Martha had their differences. Mary wanted to sit at the feet of Jesus, and Martha thought Mary ought to be helping her serve, from the kitchen. But anyway, wherever there were differences, these were resolved, at least on the day of Pentecost. And this becomes the basis of the release of God's power. The thing about it is we're to be one. Jesus prayed that we might be one even as the Father and He were one. And this meant that, like in some instances, Jesus had to yield, or not in some, in every instance he would yield to the Father. But just prior to Calvary, Jesus was, visiting with the Father about what he's going to have to do. And he said, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. What he's getting ready to, it involved the cross. But nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. So this pattern is to be our guideline in developing loving relationships with one another. Nobody said it would be easy, but it's necessary. Then, if we can learn how to love one another in the church, this becomes the basis of loving folk outside the church in the community. Now, if you think folks inside the church might be tough to learn how to love, well, outside the church, where they're not making any bones about being kind and sweet and all that kind of stuff, that if you're going to love them, then you're going to have been trained in order to do that. And even as I speak this, I'm thinking, golly, are there going to be classes in the local church teaching people how to love? Well, okay. Well, why not?